Starlings, this is another installment of Is Blank Accessible? This time we're going to talk about Orlando, and in specifics I'm going to be discussing a little bit of Disney World, a little bit of Universal Studios, because every time I visited Florida it was usually visiting one of those two locations. So I will be discussing those, the airport, getting there, all of the fun things. So let's get right into it. Okay, so I don't really recall my earliest memories visiting the state of Florida, but the only memory I really do have is I wore a hard back brace. It was my entire torso. I hated that thing, but I wore it basically 23 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was a whole thing. And the only memory I really have is every time we would be at the airport, I was always randomly selected to be investigated, because it's a little awkward when a 6 to 7 year old is wearing this back brace thing over top of her clothes. So I was always being screened for that. And I nothing against them. I find it funny looking back on that. But when talking about Orlando, the last time I went was 2022. I went to Universal Studios with my mom, Ruth, and my stepdad. We went down there for 4 or 5 days, and I love Universal Studios. I've been to the Florida location, and I've also been to the California location. I've not been to Disneyland, but I have been to Disney World a couple of times, and I would love to be able to afford to make content in Disneyland and see how accessible it is, because I'm really curious how the original park works for someone like me, because you can watch as many videos as you possibly can of other paraplegics visiting these locations, but everyone works differently. Everyone has different levels of disability. Everyone has different accessibility with their bodies. So I'm really curious to see how that one works out for me. So I'm going to discuss Disney World first, because the airport, I don't really have anything to say on it. It's very similar to like any other airport. I never really ran into problems there outside of just the everyday crowdedness of it all. There is a difference actually when going to the parks in Florida versus the parks in California. So when I went to Universal Studios in California, I wanted to get, I don't think it's a DAS pass, they didn't call it that, but it most likely was. It was just a piece of paper that put me in like a virtual line essentially to come back at this time, and they'll plot me in the place that I was supposed to be in. So when I got that in California, I didn't have any problems with it. They just asked about my disability and what it hinders me from, and then just gave me the little card. And we only used it once. We used it for the Jurassic World, the water ride. We used it for that. And Florida was far more rigid in their rules, especially at Universal. So we get there, and we just wanted to see how that process works out. And they basically started interrogating me. They were asking me how I was paralyzed, how am I able to prove it to them, to go into detail about everything about according to my disability. It was crazy, and we ended up just saying, you know, forget it, because we didn't even end up getting one. Oh, we did, but we just never used it, because what was the point, you know? And I understand why they do that, because there are a lot of people who do abuse that system, the disability pass. A lot of people I have seen truly were abusing it and laughing and gloating about it. And so I understand the precautions one must take to keep it well available for people like me or in worse predicaments. However, it was a little jarring, because I'd never been interrogated at a theme park before, so that was fun. Last time I went to Disney World, I think I was 12 years old, and that was actually through the Make-A-Wish program, I believe was the last time I was even there. And that was a lot of fun, mainly because they took care of everything, and I got to go on my first quote-unquote roller coaster with, I think it was Space Mountain. I loved that so much, and I don't remember ever having an issue transferring at Disney World. I also don't really remember any issues with hotels, because we would usually stay on the resort properties. My father really enjoyed the French Quarter Port Orleans.
Where are you? Is this better? Now you got Miranda. Being on vacation. Granny has not once told me how she wants a divorce. She's not thinking about divorce, threatening divorce, contemplating murder. If I don't take her home and drive all the way home tonight, like our usual vacations.
When we get home.
Yeah, give her a few more. I'll film her in a few more days. Hang on.
He really enjoyed that one. I don't ever remember there really being any issues with bathroom situations or getting around in the room or even the resort itself. I do recall hearing that they got rid of the bus transportations, whatever it was called. It was the Magic Express or whatever it was called. And we used that all the time when I was growing up, every time we would go. And I'm very fortunate that I was able to go as many times as I did. And then I heard that they got rid of it and I was like, oh, okay. That's unfortunate for a lot of people because it was like the best mode of transportation when resort hopping and going to the different places. But when staying there, I don't remember all the places, the different on-site hotels we stayed at, but I don't ever remember there really being a problem. And I had a bigger, bulkier chair back then. I didn't have such a streamlined chair that I do now. So I'm really curious to see the more modern ones someday and just see how the updates are in, you know, the 2020s, if you will. For Universal Studios, I prefer Universal Studios over Disney World. Personally, I just enjoy Universal films. I enjoyed them more than Disney movies growing up. I enjoy the aesthetic and themes of Universal more than Disney. So Universal Studios has a place in my heart. If I am ever visiting and wanting to go to a theme park, it's usually going to be Universal Studios. So when we last went in, oh my goodness, 2022 was the last time I was there? Yes, because it was for my film premiere and then we had a couple of days to kill before I had other things to do. So we went to Universal Studios in California. That was a lot of fun. And then we went back to the one in Florida. And I love Universal Studios, like I said, but I really do prefer the Florida one. I feel like there's more to do there. I feel that you have just more range to do in the Florida one. And so I didn't run into any issues, to my knowledge. The only issue I ran into was getting from resort, which was not on the property, to the park, because Orlando, at least the area we were in, did not offer wheelchair accessible vehicles with Lyft nor Uber. So we had to just get the larger Uber, which cost more, and then hope that it was going to fit in the back seats, because my stepfather didn't go to the parks with us. It was just the three of us, me, my mom, and Ruth. So we had to constantly figure that out, and then getting from there to the airport to the hotel, it was also, we had to get two separate Ubers because they didn't offer wheelchair accessible vehicles, which was confusing because every time I checked, they just never offered it. But Orlando is a major city. Los Angeles is a major city. Los Angeles provides it throughout LA County. I was very, very shocked to see that Orlando didn't have it. At least when I checked. Maybe they updated it when I left. So with my old chair, and we were in Orlando, it was bulky. It didn't come apart. It did not fold. It was a pain in the butt to maneuver, and my mom and Ruth are up there in age. So that was a lot of fun. If I were to go back, when I go back, I would love to go back. I am happier to have this smaller chair. I would prefer for wheelchair accessible vehicles to be offered in a more broad range, but you know, what can you do? I would say the main issue that someone in a manual wheelchair, and if you have similar mobility to me, I would say just transportation might be your biggest foe when visiting different parts of Orlando. But once you're there, everything is pretty smooth sailing. I don't remember hitting any real snag once at theme parks or restaurants. I didn't really have to research into places to make sure that it was accommodating for me because everything was just kind of nice. I think that just might be because Florida as a whole is kind of like a great place for retirement and they try to make that as accommodating as possible. But I love visiting Florida. I love visiting Orlando, especially the theme parks. I would love to go to the new park when it's built in 2025. They have a whole new extension at Universal Studios that's being built. I would love to go there and just see, to see the parks and see the different worlds that they have added on to Universal. But I would love to see how accessible these brand new rides are, because I have been to Universal many times. I've been to Disney World many times, never been to Disneyland, and they're almost all accessible. I don't go on roller coasters just because of my full spinal fusion. That's just, I'm not gonna risk it for a minute of ride. I'm not gonna risk that, especially considering just it is almost my entire spine. So I'm okay not going on roller coasters, although I did accidentally go on one the last time I went to Universal Studios. We didn't know it was a roller coaster. So for those who want ride tips, which one was it? The Escape from Gringotts, I think, in Harry Potter World, where the big dragon is. Yeah, that's a roller coaster. When it says on the sign that this is a roller coaster, just because they give you 3D glasses does not mean that it's not a roller coaster. I thought, they're giving us 3D glasses. It's going to be a 3D simulation ride like Despicable Me or like Spider-Man. It's going to be the same thing. I was so wrong. We get there. There was another girl in a wheelchair. She was, I think, middle to high school age. and the ride kept breaking. And so we're both sitting there with our respective families, just kind of shooting the breeze, not really knowing what to do because what were we supposed to do? Actually, I think that was a different ride. I think that was the other one. The one where you kind of go whee through the castle. I'm talking about the wrong ride. That one was fun. You have to be very careful though, because there is a part where you tilt really, really far and my legs were just whee! So I had to hold on to them the entire time. That was fun. I would say Escape from Green Gods. We went through it and I'm reading the signs and it's a long line and the lines move fast. So we also went at a great time in November, so it wasn't too crowded. I kept reading the signs, my mom kept reading them, Ruth kept reading them, and we thought, oh, but they're giving us 3D glasses. This is totally fine. It's not going to be a roller coaster. We get into the cart, the little train cart, and we're listening to Helena Bonham Carter lull me to sleep with her beautiful voice. And then all of a sudden, the cart goes from this to this. And I'm sitting next to Ruth, and Ruth is sitting next to my mother. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, she's gonna kill me when this ride's over. It was a roller coaster. And the ride ends, and it is a little jerky. It's not awful. You can do it, especially when I have a full spinal fusion. My spine tends to be more fragile now. I was fine. I was a little sore after, but nothing too crazy. And I just remember my mom looking at me going, let's do it again. I sat there and went, really? My entire life, I was petrified of roller coasters just because of the connotation that I could get seriously injured because of the jerkiness and bumpiness. So next time I go, guess who's going to be first in line for Hagrid's ride, which is an actual roller coaster. Velocicoaster I will skip. I don't feel like going on a ride that goes like 65 miles per hour in like 0.2 seconds. So I love the Escape from Green Gods ride. It's like it's my new favorite ride at Universal Studios. I would say you can go for it. It's not nearly as jerky and scary for the health of your body as I thought it was. I was just, my heart went through the floorboards when the ride went, and I remember just sitting there going, oh my goodness, I'm so dead. Okay, so I know that I was supposed to basically discuss Orlando, but really every time I visit Orlando, I'm usually just at one of the theme parks. We went to this one mall and a little shopping center on the in-between days to get food and just shop and stuff, which was fine. And it's just like any other mall. But in conclusion, the parks are great. The parks are fun. I would love to go again and just really get into depth about each ride and event that goes on at the parks. I just can't afford to do that right now, especially with how my life is going. So I would love to do that someday just because I watch other content creators and every situation is just so unique. Every situation is so different. So even the advice I give about some of these rides that I was talking about, a lot of people may look at me like I'm crazy, which I am, but I would say I would love to be able to show it first person and not just recount it to you verbally. I'd like to be able to showcase how it looks and how it functions. So I would love to do that someday. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions about Orlando, if you have any questions about Disney World, Universal Studios, my knowledge on Disney World is going to be a little fuzzy just because, again, the last time I was there, I was 11, maybe 12 years old. I was more like 12 years old. So it's going to be a little dodgy in terms of recollection. So I will do my best to answer those questions. I can answer questions about California's Universal Studios for people with disabilities, and I can answer for Florida's version. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm sorry it's probably going to be shorter than most of my videos. There's just not a lot to say about Florida, honestly. I need to visit more of Florida because I've only ever been to essentially one part. I have all my social media links in my description box below, along with coupon codes to save you money at tons of different locations, such as beauty products to SFX to the most random of things, including protection from, with, I can't think of the word, VPNs, you know? Protection from scammers, if you will. I also have my books are down in the description box below. I am still working on 2 separate novels right now. I know, it's been a long time. Hopefully they will be out before I'm dead. But with all that being said, please give this video a like. If you like this video, please subscribe if you like my content. And with all that being said, I will see you all later.